doing this the wrong way. All right. Well, welcome to the Salesforce User Group Portland, Oregon branch meeting. For March, we're going to go over release notes for Spring 25. My name is Michael Montez. I'm the co-leader here along with Rouse from CS2 Marketing. She will be joining us a little bit later, hopefully. But I work for NORC, based out of Chicago, the research center out of Chicago, Illinois, and work here in Portland, Oregon, remotely, obviously. And I've been in the ecosystem for a while now, about 12 years. And today we're going to be going over my version of the Spring 25 release notes, or the things that I find important, that are important to me and important to admins, I think, in general, from the Spring 25 release. So just a couple heads up on this. This is probably already live in your org. We are doing this a little bit late. And the release notes, the release enhancements went out early to mid-February. So you should have all of these changes already taking place in your org. And if you have any questions, any comments, anything, just speak up. I cannot see the chat right now, so just shout it out. It's fine. I will not take offense. All right, so let's start with the general stuff. General enhancements. This is the section header also. That's in the release notes as well, so you can find this under general enhancements here. But if anybody has any like really good security, if you have good security, if you have really high level security, where your IT department it only allows certain domains, you will need to add the new salesforce-setup.com domain, and this is going to be the new domain that hosts the setup pages within Salesforce. You'll see this right now in your sandboxes, the setup domain, but it's rolling out incrementally to production environments. So you may not see it in your production environment yet, but it should be completed by the end of March, if not the end of April. But if you look in your sandboxes, you should see in the setup section of your sandbox the Salesforce-setup domain there. So just something to know if you have really whitelisting your domains or things like that. The other thing that is being enforced is the verifying. Users need to verify their email address. So if they haven't verified their email address, they will have to do so now. And to do that, you have the user will go to the My Email settings, and there'll be a resend verification code or a send verification link. They will send that. It sends out an email verification. Click through the link as if they were logging in for the first time, kind of thing, and then it'll just kind of allow them to send emails from within Salesforce for their user. So you do have to do this if you have, say you have a system user. What I'm trying to say? Like a authenticated user, that like a Marketo user, right? You will have to go through this on every single user that is. I can't remember the word I'm trying to say. You want to help? You've got one user for one account for your application. Anyway, just make sure you get them all set up. Okay, Lightning reports and dashboards. It's a whole new system for custom report types. So if you haven't tried this yet since the release, definitely get over there and check it out. We may do a whole session on this, just on how to build custom report types efficiently. But there is a new layout for adding fields, adding related fields, lookup fields on objects, things like that in the custom report types. So definitely take a look at that. If you are a report hound, I would recommend that you take a look at that. The new functionality in there, because it really makes it much simpler to build those report types. That that drag and drop thing they used to do with the field, you have to go drag it in, shake it in, that kind of stuff. That's all gone. It's a much better UI and column based and all kinds of stuff. So very, very helpful.
Is it all right if we ask questions in line?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm just curious. Functionally, is there anything different about that, or is it just a smoother UI for it?
There's supposed to be some additional improvements to the pages. Functionally, yes, it's fully rebuilt, but there will be some additional features in there that you can, you get more fields, like it says right there. You get up to 1,000 fields in there, and building out sections is a lot easier as well. So it's also built on Lightning UX, or the new platform, so it just makes it faster as well in that space as well. So you do have more fields to build from.
Other than the number of fields, though, what can be done with a report type hasn't really changed. It's just a lot easier to use now. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it finally got touched, basically. Yeah. Okay, customizations. So if you have been paying attention in the last couple of releases, they redid the back end of they basically consolidated all of the permissions and user pages that were in the setup section. They basically overhauled setup, and they've kind of unified it under one code set. And now we're seeing some more of these benefits, which are you can now enable the enhanced user permission set view, list view, and the role list view. So the role list view specifically, if you remember the roles, if you go into the role section of setup, it was or still be if you don't change this, it'll have that little tree, the little tree that comes off there for the different roles, and it puts them into the hierarchy view. Now you can actually switch this using the enhanced role view, and it goes back to a list view. So it's a list view that you can sort and edit from, summarize, those kinds of things. So you have to turn that on in your user management settings. But there's an enhanced permission set view and enhanced role list view that you want to enable, potentially want to enable for that. And then that gives you some things we'll see in the next couple of slides here. I wanted to point those out. And also, with that new unified under UI, the object home pages, when you go to an object home page and you've got a list view, now you have the option to sort that list view by multiple columns. So not just one column, but 2, 3, 4 columns in your list view. But you cannot, let's see, it says, I put in here, sorting by multiple columns affects your user preferences, and you cannot save multi-column sorting as a default. So you can go in there and build them and sort them by one field, but you can't say this one does the multi-sort for this. And this is currently on the object home pages. So you go to the account page, leads page, the contact page, whatever custom object home page tab. You can create your list views and then sort them by multiple columns. I think the ability to make the default a multi-column sort is coming, but it's not here just yet. And then on your record pages, you have a related list. You can also do multi-column sorting on those related lists as well. So that's a new thing. So yeah, check that out. All right, let's talk a little bit about some permission updates. So we saw earlier that you have to enable permission set. You can enable permission set, advanced list views, but what does that actually get you? Well, now from the permission set itself, if you look at the screenshot there, you can manage where what permission set group a permission set is a part of. So if you look at that first tab there, it says, let's see, so there's an underlined tab that says users. The tab just to the left of that says related permission set groups. If you were on that tab, you would see a list of permission sets that the permission set groups that this permission set is a part of, and you could remove them from that permission set group. On this screenshot that you see below, this allows you to remove actual users from the permission set, just from the permission set summaries, or excuse me, user permissions from a permission set summary. So drag and drop dashboard builder, if you don't want that user functionality within that permission set, you can remove that from that sub tab there that you have, the user permission sub tab. Does that make sense? Did I butcher that too much? It just, it's just like they said, this was last year's TDX. They talked about all the under the hood stuff that they're doing. And now we've seen more and more of the kind of the benefits of these under the hood enhancements. View all fields in a permission set. So you're going to go to a permission set. You're going to go to the account, to the object. And then at the bottom on that screenshot on the left side, you can grant a user view all fields without having to basically click all the fields, right? Or click and choose, but just say any field that's on this object, this permission set has the ability to view all the fields. And that includes the fields that get added after the permission set is created. So as you add new fields, they will be view for that permission set. And then on the other side of that, they've actually cleaned up some of the naming, the way that it's named. So it's view all and modify all are now view all records and modify all records. And that's basically supposed to help us remember that we are giving a blanket permission to that particular permission set.
So view all fields recently bit me in the butt because there was a lookup field on the object that was referencing an object they didn't have permissions to. And so it was causing error messages. So just something to think about.
Right. So you did a view all fields, and then but the related object didn't have access to that.
So those two things together cause an error. You gave them view all fields, but because the lookup field they didn't have permissions to the object.
Yeah, the lookup field is referencing a CPQ object, and they didn't have a license to it. So
did you have to remove the view all fields?
I did. Yes.
Interesting. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so let's go into the flows section. So if you ever build a screen flow and you add validation to your field that's in your screen flow, you can add validation like email address must have an @ symbol and a dot in there. And when you enter put your cursor in the box, type in your email address and tab out of the box. Go to the next, let's say you had you're creating a new contact screen flow, name, email address, phone number. Put the name in, you put the email address in, you put it wrong. You put the phone number in, you put 13 digits instead of 7 or 10, 11. And you put validation in there is no error message when you tab through them. You click the next button to go to the next screen, then the error messages will show up. That's the old way. The new way is, as you tab through those fields on that screen, if there is a validation error, it'll show up as you tab out of that field, so that the user doesn't have to do the next screen in order to see the validation, the failure message or error message, whatever it might be. So that's a new thing for the new flows. Just know that you can do much more complex. Well, you can do whatever you want, but much more complicated. The user will receive that error message in real time as they tab through. And then also on screen flows, you have the ability to add in visual progress indicators or progress bars at the top, just to let the user know kind of good user experience, where they are in the process, how much time is left, how many steps are left, et cetera, et cetera. So that is in there. You have to build out those in progress indicators.
Well, the flow bar, progress bar was always available. It was just a lot of work to set it up and maintain it. Whereas now you just set the stage right on the form, and it's so much easier.
Yeah, stages. It uses the stage event element to do it, but yeah, it's much easier to build an impact progress bar now. And with your flows, one of my pet peeves was always, I'm in a flow, I'm editing it, I saved it, but I made a change. I wanted to compare my previous version with this version. I have to back out or go to my other tab or whatever it is. I click on the old version, open that up in a new tab, and now I can kind of see them. Well, now from within the flow itself, at the top right, there's a drop down that has the various version numbers and what their status is. And you can click on one of those and that'll open up itself in a new tab. So you don't have to go back and forth as much in there. So it makes it a little bit easier to kind of work around within your flows. And then that other window we see there is errors and warnings that got revamped, the layout. So actually, if you click on those blue segments of a frequency or segment, actually take you to the error itself as well. So it's just kind of making it a little bit easier for us to build and troubleshoot kind of flows that exist. And then there's a new, well, there's not a new, Transform has been around for a few releases now, but now they've added the ability to join collections with Transform.
Now it works.
So have you had a chance to use that?
Oh, love it. I use it all the time. It replaced so many instances I was using loops to go, build a collection of, record IDs or something. Now I can just spit those right out to a text collection, or I can build records with it. It eliminated probably 80% of my need for loops.
Nice.
Well, I've never used it before. I would love to see a demonstration on it someday.
That's exactly to where I'm going. Maybe if you have something today, maybe you want to share, that'd be wonderful. But if not, that's fine too. We can see what we can do. But I definitely need to get into this because I don't have any use cases myself. So I'm looking for people who have use cases where they've used Transform.
Well, I'll give you a quick one just for an example. Say you do a get because you want to find, a set of records, and then you want to do another get that says, give me all the records where, the owner is within, the users I just got. And so to do that before, I would have to kind of go through a loop, and I would, pull all of those IDs for the users into a collection. And then when I got out of the collection, my get could say, hey, where the user ID is in that text collection. Now you can just, instead of doing that loop, do a transform that says, take that ID, map it to a text collection in the right-hand column, and then you can just reference the transform element as a record collection or as a text collection or whatever kind of collection you build out of it. So the transform object essentially builds a collection that you can reference.
Right. Okay. Yeah, we definitely need to dig deep on the transform object element as well, because it can do a lot. And I don't have a huge ton of personally have a ton of use cases. I need to build out some use cases for it, some examples for sure. Let's see. Okay, does anybody have Einstein yet? So if you have Einstein, if you're paying for it, you do need to have Einstein for sales, Einstein for service, or one of those packages. But if you do, having Einstein build a flow for you based on your prompt, or having them do the description of your flow as it exists, or getting help when you're creating a flow, when you're working with a formula within a flow, those are all GA. They're generally available. So just know that if you do happen to be paying for those features, this is now available within your org. So I did see a demo with the building flows. I don't have the license type. We don't pay for the package, so I'm not able to use it. But if anybody has built anything or has worked with it just yet on any of these elements, or please let us know, because we're interested in seeing it in action outside of a Trailhead or a Salesforce demo. But does anybody have any experience with this yet? No.
We don't have experience with Einstein AI, but we've been mucking around with a bunch of like in-house AI stuff, and it's like you have a unlimited hours intern. Don't expect quality above an intern, but if you have a bunch of low-level stuff that you need to take care of, then it's pretty decent at doing that.
Right. That's a good point. Is that if you have other tools, you can copy paste your XML in there and ask it to do something regarding that code, right? And you could ask your other system to build you a flow, and the output be XML. You definitely want to double check everything first, but you can do that with the other tools. But this is just done within, right? Like it's done within Salesforce. So. Do you do a lot of prompting like that, Dan?
I encourage my team to play with it. Like I said, it's like an intern with unlimited hours who will go off and do things while you're doing other things. We found it can do boilerplate code from our repo pretty well. It kind of can do flow. It's decent at like telling you what a flow does, but there's a lot of extra XML right now in flows that are a little confusing to it. But
interesting. All right. Well, AI is here. See how long it stays. It's not going anywhere, I'm sure. But get on the train, I guess. But yeah. Any questions about the particular Einstein feature? Because you do the license, and it does eat up credits. If you're using the building flows, it eats credits. But I don't know that anybody has too many credits. So, all right. And then a couple of miscellaneous things that were in there that I found interesting. You can send an email attachment from within your flow. So if you have a flow and you send an email, there's now a field that allows you to link to a file. So files, the object files. You can put a PDF, let's say, in your files, and then you get the ID for that file. You can have the email that gets sent out attach that file to your email from within a flow. So you can do, whatever you need to do where you attach a file to it. But now you can't attach files from the flow. Yeah.
Would you use a content document?
A file. So files. The file object.
Okay, a file record?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll only be files.
Is it still limited to 5 email recipients?
5 email recipients if you use the comma. If you can send to a collection of emails, like if you had a filtered collection, you could send as many in there, but you can only send to 5 if you're using that comma recipient. Do you know what I'm talking
about? Okay.
Yeah, because I have a team. I have one where I send an email. Let's say I have to send an email to a list of team members that are on a record. I build a collection of those email URLs or IDs, and you can send that to a collection. But I also have like a distribution list that's in Outlook that goes into the comma space, and then the other one goes into just send to this collection, and then also send to this distribution list, which is just basically a hard-coded email address. But yeah. And then when you're doing a get, you can actually set the limit on how many records you get in that particular get records object. And then the last thing is the automation app. If you're using the automation app, if you're not using the automation app, consider it. I haven't fully converted, but one of the things they've been adding pieces to it, and they recently added failed and paused flows are now their own tab within that automation app. So it saves you from having to go to the failed flows, failed automation section within the setup. So if you're in the automation app, you've got all your flows in there, and then now you also have a tab for called monitoring. So you can see those.
I feel like last time I tried to look at automation app, like when it was brand new, I was not seeing all the flows in there. Is that fixed now?
I did that too, and I was like, "What's going on?" And it just defaulted to some weird list view that was called like it didn't have the right name. But when I created a new list view for my flows, they were all there. So I don't know if you ran into this thing.
Definitely looks like there's a lot more now when I look at it again. I mean, I literally haven't looked at it since it first came out because I was like, I can't even see half the flows in here. So at least it's moving in the right direction.
Yeah. So I think there's like three. Yeah. Anyway, there's three sections in the back in the setup. They're kind of all consolidated into this one app now, so it makes it more helpful.
Nice.
Okay. Last
Can I
section
add one
here.
last thing about flows because it's my
Yes, sir.
favorite thing, and that is the flow actions that you can now do on a screen.
Yes.
And I was confused by this when it first came out, but essentially what you can do is call a subflow directly from a screen and assign its inputs and outputs to other components on the screen. So say, for instance, you have a subflow that takes, you know, an account as an input, and then you can assign the lookup to that input. So when a user chooses the lookup, it automatically runs that subflow without leaving the screen and returns values. And then you can assign the values to other parts of the screen. So you could have like a data table at the bottom that says, show me, you know, that lists all the opportunities associated with whatever account you just indicated on your lookup. It happens real time. So there's so much more you can do without having to leave the screen. You used to have to kind of take the answers they inputted on the screen and then, you know, do your gets and whatever, and then go to the next screen. But now you can, it's much more reactive, much more responsive without leaving the screen. It's a fantastic feature.
Yeah, definitely. We're going to have a flow. We definitely need to have a flows revisited kind of a thing, because the screen flows specifically have gotten so much more powerful, and it really does. We've been using flows a lot as for wizards and things like that to get our users to do exactly what we want them to do, or at least execute the way we want them in an order that we feel is best. And with all these new elements, these new tools, it makes it a lot easier to guide them through something rather than just asking them to hit edit on a page and just fill in the page fields, right? So if you have that need and that use case, it can be really helpful, especially for teams that have to go through a specific workflow process, like a sales team or a service team. They're really powerful. The screen flows are very, very helpful, useful, and powerful, but they definitely need to be. They take some time to get used to and get started with, but I think we should all review them together on how to do some things. So definitely get going on that as well. So again, looking for volunteers, or you want to share your ideas on flows and some examples, use cases on those. More than happy to get that set up as we move towards our next session. All right. So the security, identity, and privacy. This is interesting to me. If you have a welcome, so you know, when you set up a new user and you create the user, they get an email from Salesforce that says basically you can now access Salesforce. Well, now you can kind of use a custom email template for that process. So you can build your own email template, brand it. You have to put in a specific. If you look at the documentation here, there's a wildcard that you put in that'll give them a click on the link to access your account, kind of a thing. But you can fully brand this email now to look like it's coming from, you know, whatever communications your team uses, right? So if you have a certain email template that goes out with everything, if you've got some sort of whatever, you can now match the colors and the logo and all that good stuff that none of us do. But it's a classic email template, so it gets used classic as well. So two benefits there. And then multi-factor authentication serves as as part of your password reset. So before or currently, the user will be asked their secret question, you know, one of their secret questions. And now you can actually just use the MFA, multi-factor, instead of the secret question, kind of a thing. So that's there. And then the last one here is that the password reset links will stay valid for multiple days. This was a big issue. I've run into this a lot whenever I work at a company that has Microsoft. as their default or as their kind of source, and we'll use Outlook, specifically Outlook, because Outlook, when it gets an email, will check the validity of a link, and that will actually trigger the link and then renders the link invalid. So if you did a password reset email, it would come to you, you go click on it, and it would say, this link has already been used, it's expired. There's a special little checkbox in Salesforce just for that thing that says don't expire links from Outlook. Well, now they're just like, screw that. Everybody can keep the link valid for more than one click, right? So that's there. So that is what I got out of the Spring 25. Does anybody have additional things that they saw or they've been experiencing, or anything they'd like to just share about Spring 25, things that other people might want to know about? There are a lot of sections I did not go over, obviously sales, service, marketing cloud, etc. So if anybody's run into anything.
If you are on,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, if you're on Hyperforce and you have event logging, they made it so it's not an awful experience to go through your event logs. They're now accessible just via standard like Sockwell instead of downloading weird CSV files.
Nice.
I was going to say I don't have probably as much depth of experience as Dave, but I don't really write code. I work in like a developer space, but I recently started playing around with like HTTP callouts in my dev org, getting like, using like APIs to get data back into Salesforce, and that's been like a cool use case for the transform tool. So like if you're pulling weather data or stock market data or something like that, and then using transform to, push those values to specific fields. That's been kind of an interesting use case that I recently came across.
I love the HTTP callouts. I haven't had too many instances to use them, but building APIs from scratch seems very within reach in Flow now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like really have the ability to write Apex and stuff myself, but then got very curious when I saw that you could essentially still do these callouts and everything and sort of manage it and command it from Flow without having to write any extra code. And it's been very interesting to see how much you can move back and forth with.
Yeah, it kind of writes the Apex for you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Does anybody have any other general questions, comments, concerns, thoughts to get in front of the Brain Trust? This is a good group, a lot of experience, a lot of fingers and pies. All right, I'm going to stop the recording. We'll hang around here for a little bit. Thank you for attending. Don't leave, you don't have to. But thank you for attending and watching the video, and returning shortly.